Hi, I'm Johnny Ray, and this is 5 Hour Recovery. Remembering where we came from. Remembering is the first phase of 5 Hour Recovery. Let's be real. Digging up our old past and going through the things that we've gone through in our childhood and growing up is not always going to be easy. I recommend you be real, though. I recommend you be vulnerable, you drop your guards, and you spend quality time, long-term time, going over your past with another human being that you trust through journaling. Could be a doctor, could be a psychiatrist, could be your mother. I've been thinking about how I want to do this. How do I want to start with phase one for people to get an idea of what remembering is like? And I feel like the only way to do that is to give a little bit of my testimony. Now, for time's sake, I'm not gonna give you every detail like I recommend you doing, but I'll give you a little bit about me to give you an idea of what remembering our past looks like. Like I said, I'm Johnny Ray. I'm an addict. I've been an addict since I was 16 years old. I come from a really nice household, good parents, good grandparents, good family all around. They taught me values. They taught me manners. I had everything I needed, but not everything I wanted, and that's important. And the reason I say that is because I always had the things that I needed, but never all of the things I wanted. I wasn't spoiled. I was given an opportunity to do anything I wanted in the world. I, by all means, destroyed that. I simply started doing drugs out of curiosity. I wanted to try everything. I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see the world in a different light. I had good grades. I got along with people in high school. My parents were not drug addicts at all. They didn't drink. They didn't smoke. There was no abuse, no neglect. I had really, really good parents growing up. I just did it because I wanted to party. I wanted to go out there and make a lot of money and have power and property, and those things meant things to me. Materialistic things meant something to me. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have all that, and I wanted people to think I was cool. I was always short growing up, so I always thought it would make me tough if I was a drug addict. And I started off with hallucinogenics. I started out with LSD and ecstasy. We used to candy flip on the weekends. If I was better with technology, I would say candy flip on the bottom. It would be LSD plus ecstasy. I don't know how to do that, so that's what it is. Candy flipping is LSD and ecstasy. I used to do it on the weekends. I used to rave a lot. I mean, I graduated high school. It started out as just partying on the weekends. When I was 16 years old, I threw a house party. And my parents went away. They never went away. For once, they left for, I think it was an entire week, and I threw a really big house party. And I ended up getting kicked out of my house. They came home, and it was trash, and the neighbors and everybody knew, and there was garbage everywhere, and there was all sorts of stuff. And my dad and mom were not stupid people. They still are not. They're not stupid people. They always knew when I was up to no good, you know. So after throwing that house party and I got kicked out, I started selling cocaine, and it was the way that I kept myself going. I moved into a house that wasn't necessarily a good place to live, but it kept my drug running going, and kept me able to go to school, but also still keep in the loop with my friends. It's funny because I've never this testimony is like, I don't know. I'm gonna skate through it. I'm gonna go really, really fast. So after I started selling cocaine, I ended up graduating high school. Drugs started getting really, really bad. I always worked a job, but it was always just to fund my habit. I remember when my grandfather found me in my apartment in Everett, and I was curled in a ball, and I was watching a TV that wasn't on. I had all my eyelashes pulled out, and there was no power in the entire house. And I had a blanket over me, and I was rocking back and forth. And what ended up happening when I started doing so many hallucinogenics and so much ecstasy, I was having a tough time differentiating between reality and not. Again, I didn't do drugs because of I had trauma, or I had depression, or I didn't do drugs because there was something built up inside of me that wasn't right. I had everything. I had the opportunity to do anything I wanted, and my family made that apparent to me. Like I could have had the world. I could have went to college. I could have been a lawyer, a doctor. I could have did whatever I wanted, and my family would have fully supported me. Why did I choose this route? I don't know. But before I knew it, I was stuck. Before I knew it, it had a lock on me. Before I knew it, I didn't know what to do. It definitely had its toll on me. When my grandfather found me, I was curled in a ball, and like I said, I was pretty out of my mind. And he gave me an opportunity to get clean, to move to a town that I'd never known about and leave absolutely everything. His exact words were, "You grab a bag, just one bag, pack it up, and I'll move you down to the town that I live at, and we'll give you a chance to start your life over." To be honest, I was so incoherent. I grabbed a bag and jumped in the truck, and that was really really hard. I mean, I lived around here for 20 years. You know, this was when I was about, say, 20, 19 years old, 20 years old. And I left everything I'd ever known without saying goodbye to a single person. Um, Friends, girlfriends, high school chums. I never said goodbye to any of them. I got in a truck. I moved away. I remember for the first 3 months at my grandpa's house, all I did was really scream, eat, and sleep. I had really horrible nightmares, and it was tough to get me. I was really skinny and nasty, and at that point I was doing, cocaine and LSD and ecstasy and other stuff and mixed in between, and alcohol and weed. And I was doing everything. I mean, I was just out of my mind. So coming down off of it was not easy. Moved forward a little while. I got clean. I got a job, started fresh. But again, I never really planned on getting clean. I mean, it was just a social thing for me. It was a fun thing for me, but it always grabbed me. It always put me right back in the chokeholds of addiction, right? Like I'd just be at a gathering and somebody would have some narcotics. And so I'd be like, hey, let's do it. And the next thing you know, I'm doing it all the time. I'm working at my job. I'm selling it out of my job. It was always, I was always an addict, and I never knew it until I knew what addiction was, until I knew what an addict was. It was always me doing the most extreme thing. And when I'm working a recovery program, it's crucial that I pay attention to that. It's crucial that during this time of being clean, I recognize that I can't do anything to the extreme, and it has nothing to do with just being narcotics. Narcotics is a substance, or is a symptom of our disease of addiction, right? It's just the counterpart to it. It's not the real part. The real part's me. I'm the problem. I'm the issue. So I've got to work on that. Long story short, I end up doing this for the next 20 years of my life. Speed things along here. Next 20 years of my life, I got jobs, I got cars, I got houses. I always went back to doing drugs and always ended up losing absolutely everything and always ended up in the worst case possible situation. I ended up in houses that got raided by the police. I ended up living in cars, in ditches, living under bridges. I ended up sleeping on park benches in downtown Seattle. I ended up always doing the same thing, and yet through it all, there were certain family members of mine that were always trying to help me by feeding me what I needed, right? They give me food or they give me shelter. And I don't recommend doing that to parents. And I know that's difficult because my mother and my grandparents and my family loved me dearly, but cutting me off was the absolute best decision to make. And that can be hard. I tell parents that all the time. Cutting your kids off and turning your back on them can be one of the most difficult decisions you ever have, but enabling them could kill them. And every time I would get closer and closer, and pretty soon I wanted to die. I was so trying to overdose, and I did everything in my power to try to bring myself, because I didn't want to face life anymore. I had built myself up and got it torn down, and every time I'd have to build myself back up and get it torn down. Every time I'd take advantage of my family. I'd steal from my family members. I'd steal from the companies I worked for. I didn't have any friends. I just had people around me that wanted something from me, right? This went on for forever. For 20 years. For 20 years this went on. Until finally, on my 6th day of being clean, not clean by choice, clean because I didn't have anything. I had burned bridges with everybody in my family. I had burned bridges with my grandparents, my mother, my father, everybody. Nobody would talk to me. I was at a campsite, living in a truck, eating blackberries and cherry plums for lunch, eating spoonfuls of peanut butter to keep myself alive. I was 6 days sober, not by choice, not by my decision, because I didn't have any money and I didn't have any drugs. And I heard a voice, and that voice came from God. And it was a simple, subtle question. It was, are you done? Wow. It was clear as day. Never have I heard anything like that before in my life. And it jarred me. It was like lightning to me. It shocked me. It got me up, and I was like, man, I need to change something. After that voice happened, things started changing. People started coming around. They started getting more involved in my life. For instance, a lady named, oh my gosh, what is her name? Susan, a lady named Susan. She, at the campsite I was staying, would come and read the Bible to me every morning at 6 a.m. And I was coming down, I was angry and frustrated with everything, and yet she would come out there and she'd read the Bible to me. And I wasn't very nice to her, and yet she would do it every single day. things like that started opening up. Signs of like, oh my gosh, Johnny, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. A buddy of mine who I'd known for many years, that I worked at a company with for many years, who is, 10 years clean and sober, found me at the campsite one day and says, hey, have you ever tried Narcotics Anonymous? And I said, no, I'm not really into people hugging and talking about each other's feelings and stuff. It's not really for me. Ended up going to the meeting, ended up meeting a sponsor. This sponsor was one of the greatest men I have ever met in my life. When he would talk at meetings, it was like he was talking directly to me. He would always look in my direction, and I would always look over my shoulder and be like, dude, is he looking at me? This is crazy. And every time it was deep and it was impactful, and I knew the second I talked to him, I was like, I'm going to make him my sponsor. I want him to be my sponsor. He walked up to me and he was like, Johnny, I'm going to be your sponsor, but I'm not a pushover, man. I'm no joke. This is going to be serious. You ready for this? He's like, are you ready to get clean? And I was like, dude, yeah. And to be honest, he scared me a little. He was a big, scary dude. I was not ready for somebody to take me and be like, I was always aggressive. And for somebody to scare me and intimidate me made me go, oh, okay, yeah, sure, sounds good. So we start working my steps. The first thing he has me do is he has me share my testimony with him. He has me journal it out, more detailed than what I'm talking about right now. And he had me write out and talk about all of my bad stuff. I've told him secrets that I've never told another human being. It lasted weeks. Every time we'd meet up, it would be longer and longer. I'd remember certain things that I'd want to add into my story. It ended up being like 3 pages front and back, really tiny writing, right? And that's just in the section of addiction. Then we went back into my childhood. We went to where I want to go. He literally scooped me up, picked me up, dusted me off, and made me face all the stuff that I was struggling with, and made me go through my story. And I recommend that you doing that as well. That's what this is. It's remembering where we came from. After working my 4-step with him, he died of a drug overdose. When he passed away, it really affected me. He saved my life. He was a person who didn't know me, who shouldn't have cared for me as much as he did. Didn't know all the betrayal that I had caused, and he died. He went out one time and he overdosed. Since that day, I have dedicated my life to helping others get clean the same way he helped me. Again, 5-hour recovery comes from my story. I'm sorry. 5-hour recovery comes from my story. Without me remembering where I came from, I wouldn't have been able to recover from it. Remembering is crucial. Get with somebody you trust, get with somebody you know, and share your story. Be ready to go through it detail by detail, all the difficult stuff. Face it, figure out how to recover from it. And that will be the next phase. The next video, I'll show you how to recover from all those things. So thank you for listening. If you want to hear more, comment below or subscribe. I might give my full testimony one day, but for time purposes, I think I'll just leave that out. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that happened, but for, video recording purposes, I think this is suffice. My next video will be about recovering from all the stuff that you did when you remember, or that recover from all the stuff that you remember. Thank you for listening. I'm Johnny Ray, and this is 5-Hour Recovery.